Yo, what is good? It's D Scaladallo, and I'm here with this UFC 219 analysis and predictions. Last card of the year. It's a pretty good main card. I'm gonna do these 5 fights. Alright, the first fight we got is Carlos Condit returning from hiatus against Neil Magny. Carlos Condit, last time we seen him, he got beat by Damian Maia, and Neil Magny is coming off a quick loss to Rafael dos Anjos. Stylistically, we have two long rangey strikers. I think Neil Magny is the more well rounded fighter. He's shown ability to land takedowns. Carlos Condit has pretty good submission game though, so that'll be interesting to see if the fight goes there. Both of these fighters are mainly strikers. You have Carlos Condit, who's very aggressive. He's constantly coming forward. Really good gas tank, very aggressive. You have Neil Magny, who likes to use his range, likes to use the jab, and pick his opponent apart. So it'll be interesting to see how this fight takes place on the feet. Um, Carlos Condit, I think he's the better striker. I think his aggression, his range will be able to cancel out Neil Magny's use of his range as well. Even though Neil Magny still has a 5-inch reach advantage, but Carlos Condit will be one of the taller fighters he fights. I think Carlos Condit on the feet, he has more weapons. We've seen him use elbows, kicks, very good Muay Thai striking. I think for Neil Magny, what he would want to do in this fight, he'll want to mix it up. I think Carlos Condit has a very bad takedown defense. So Neil Magny should look to take this fight to the ground. Because Carlos Condit, he is an aggressive fighter. He will come forward, so we will have those opportunities to land takedowns. Both these fighters they both land at a very high percentage, so I expect a high output in this fight. But for my prediction, I have to go with the returning Carlos Condit. I think this is a pretty good matchup for him on his return. He has somebody who will engage him in the striking, who can take him down, but will also give him opportunities on the feet. So for my prediction, I'm gonna go with Carlos Condit. I'm gonna say by TKO round 2. The next fight we have the young prospect Cynthia Calvillo fighting the veteran Carla Esparza. Now the UFC, they're pretty much getting behind Cynthia Calvillo. They're looking at her, for the future of this division. And Carla Esparza, she's the former champion. She's the first ever strawweight champion. So this is a really good step up in competition for Calvillo. Even though she's the higher ranked opponent right now, I think this is a really good step up. And Carla Esparza poses a really good challenge for her. Striking wise, both these fighters, striking is not their strong suit. I will give the slight advantage to Calvillo. Not by much though, I expect this fight to hit the ground. Carla Esparza, she's definitely one of the best wrestlers in the division. So I think she should definitely use that wrestling advantage she will have. And Cynthia Calvillo, she's not scared of being taken down. She's extremely good from her back. She has very good submission game. But I think Carla Esparza, with her experience and the amount of fighters she's faced with a good submission threat, I think she knows how to neutralize that style of submissions. So for my prediction, I'm gonna go with Carla Esparza in this fight. I think that if she uses her wrestling, I think she should not fear going to the ground against Calvillo and trying to fight a stand-up fight. Even though Cynthia Calvillo has the best chance on the ground, I think Carla should not forsake her best weapon in her wrestling. I think she'll be able to neutralize the ground game of Cynthia Calvillo and win a unanimous decision. For the next fight, we have a really good matchup in the bantamweight division. We have Jimmy Rivera versus John Lineker. Jimmy Rivera, he's right there. If he wins this fight, he'll definitely be getting the title shot against TJ Dillashaw. Jimmy Rivera, undefeated in the UFC so far. He was supposed to fight Dominic Cruz, but Dominic Cruz got injured. So John Lineker has stepped up, and this is a pretty tough fight. John Lineker, very strong puncher, very good chin, very aggressive. He likes to work to the body and move on to the head. And Jimmy Rivera, he's a very good fighter, very smart fighter, very calculated. He knows how to find a way to win. Jimmy Rivera, he has decent power, but not a lot of knockouts on his record. He has a lot of decisions, but he does have decent power, but I don't think he has the power to really worry John Lineker. But he will have to look out for John Lineker's power because Jimmy Rivera has been hit in fights before. He's been dropped in fights, and John Lineker hits very hard. Striking wise, Jimmy Rivera is the more well-rounded striker. I think he has a traditional martial arts background, so he should definitely use his striking, but look to take the fight to the ground as well. Because I think in a pure stand-up fight, John Lineker will come on top. Grappling wise, Jimmy Rivera, he is the better wrestler. John Lineker has decent takedown defense, so he will be ready for that. But yeah, I think Jimmy Rivera should definitely try to mix in takedowns in his fight. John Lineker needs to keep this fight standing. He needs to keep this fight standing. Jimmy Rivera on the feet will give him opportunities. Jimmy Rivera is a very calculated fighter, but he will leave himself open at times. And John Lineker can capitalize on that. For my prediction, I predict Jimmy Rivera to win this fight. I think TJ Dillashaw, he laid out the blueprint on how to beat John Lineker. That was perfectly executed. And I think Jimmy Rivera, being the smart fighter he is, I think he'll try to duplicate that strategy. And I think he'll do that to win a unanimous decision. He'll find a range where he can be effective and avoid John Lineker's power. And he'll look to take the fight to the ground as well when John Lineker gets over aggressive. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jimmy Rivera by decision. For the next fight, the co-main event, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Edson Barboza. Really, this fight would be a number one contender fight, but Conor is just holding the division hostage right now. So the winner of this fight will probably look to fight Tony Ferguson, but I don't see Tony Ferguson wanting to fight either of these two before Conor is either gonna fight him or is stripped. But really, this would be a number one contender fight. Now, Khabib, his last fight was supposed to be against Tony Ferguson, but he couldn't even make it to the scale. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can even make it to the scale and make weight this time. I think it's going to be incredibly hard, and if he doesn't make it, I won't be surprised either. We have Edson Barboza, who's on the tear right now, just came off that flying knee of Dariush. Crazy. In my opinion, probably one of the top 2 or 3 knockouts of the year. Our matchup wise, we know this is a striker versus a grappler. Khabib is gonna want to push the pace, get in the clinch, land takedowns, land his ground and pound, and finish Edson Barboza, make him tired, make him quit, as he says. And we have Edson Barboza. He's gonna want to keep this fight standing. He's gonna want to defend those takedowns, get space, and beat Khabib on the feet. I think Khabib, with intangibles, I think Khabib, he'll be a more conditioned athlete if he makes it to the fight. He's able to push a really crazy pace, really able to wear on his opponents in fights. Edson Barboza, he slows down a little in fights. And I think in a grappling heavy fight, it's going to be really difficult against Khabib because he does slow down a little bit in fights. But he is always dangerous. Edson Barboza, his best weapons are his kicks. I think even though he's facing a wrestling Khabib, he still needs to use those kicks. Those are his best weapons. If he wants, he can attack the body and the head with those kicks, and be careful when he's throwing leg kicks because Khabib will look for any opportunity to latch on. For Barboza to win this fight, he's going to have to use footwork, disengage from the clinch as soon as possible because Khabib is really good from the clinch. Khabib, he has a really unique grappling skill set. Like he has the traditional freestyle wrestling approach, but with the judo approach when he's in the clinch. So he's very dangerous, and he has a variety of ways to get the fight to the ground, and he gets every opponent we've seen to the ground. So it's going to be on Edson Barboza to be able to stand up and get up, as soon as the fight hits the ground, because he can't settle on the ground. For my prediction, I am going to go with Khabib in this fight. I just think the pressure he's going to put on Edson Barboza, I think eventually Edson might have some success in the first round defending and stopping takedowns, but I think as the fight wears on, the second and the third round, I think Barboza will slow down and the takedowns for Khabib will come easier till eventually he has full control of the fight. So I'm gonna go with Khabib in this fight. I think he'll be able to take the fight to the ground, even though Edson Barboza has really good takedown defense. I'm looking at it; he has about 87% takedown defense rate. But Khabib is a different monster when it comes to grappling. So I'm gonna go with Khabib in this fight by decision. I think Edson might win the first round, but I think in the second and third, Khabib will control the fight. Now for the main event, for the featherweight title, we have Chris Cyborg versus Holly Holm. This is a really, really polarizing fight. Pretty much, probably two of the biggest women in MMA. As far as star power goes, it'll be interesting to see how this fight plays out. Probably the best striker each of them has faced in MMA. They both have experience outside of MMA fights, facing high level strikers. And we know Cyborg is just a beast. She's aggressive, comes forward, cuts off the cage, and just brutalizes her opponents. Very good chin, very good gas tank as well. That's an underrated component of her game. Like, she can put on the pressure, but apply that pressure throughout the whole fight. So it is no rest. It's no rest periods in this fight. And Holly Holm, she's a really decorated striker herself. Very good footwork, very good counter ability. She has a very good high kick, which I think will be what you will want to look for in this fight. When she gets that space, if she gets that space, she's gonna want to look for that high kick. Because I think with her hands, she won't really trouble Cyborg with her hands. I think she's really gonna need that kick, and I really can't see her just outpointing Cyborg in this fight. So she's really gonna have to hurt Cyborg in this fight, I believe. And Cyborg, I think Cyborg is the more well-rounded fighter. I think Cyborg, she can take the fight to the ground as well. And I think she'll have a real, it will be a real discrepancy on the ground too. If Cyborg decides to take it to the ground. Holly Holm, she's gonna want to use her footwork as she does, counter, and she's gonna want to use her kicks, use side kicks to keep the space, keep as much space. But Cyborg is really good at crashing her opponent, is really good at cutting off the cage and trapping her opponent against the cage and just unleashing a barrage on them. So this is gonna be interesting. I think for my prediction, I have to go with Chris Cyborg in this fight. I just think she's just way too powerful, way too tough, and she's gonna keep it up. I think with Holly, her footwork and her toughness, I think she'll be able to last a little long. So I am predicting a third round TKO for Cyborg. I think by that time she would have figured Holly Holm's footwork out. She would have been